Joe Burrow's latest injury cast a huge cloud over the Bengals offense. We will break it down next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Michael Fabiano. And on today's show, we're going to talk about some rookie running backs who had some pretty nice performances. We'll talk about some veteran running backs that we are buying in every Dynasty league. But Fabs, we have to start with the Joe Burrow injury. He injured his toe. I believe it was at the end of the first half. It's a turf toe injury that sounds pretty severe. It seems like, according to the latest report by Ian Rappaport, that surgery is the most likely option here. And the belief is that it's going to be a 3-month injury. That's basically the whole season. I don't see them bringing him back. What does this do, first of all, to Joe Burrow's dynasty value? And what does it do for the dynasty values of everybody in Cincinnati?
Well, first off, listen, this is a tough one because you had already lost Burrow for part of the 2023 season. And now you've got Jake Browning's coming in. And listen, Burrow's a guy who maybe he comes back in mid-December. I don't know that they would do that, as you mentioned. Time will tell if it's a worst-case scenario. But it's just a simple case of stashing him. Hopefully you have an iron spot. You could put him on there and not have to eat up a bench spot. But I went back and looked at the data from 2023 because I wanted to see exactly how Burrow's absence affected the rest of the passing game. And I will say this, Jake Browning was really good in 2020. He averaged 19 points per game. And so I don't know that Browning's going to be out there in Dynasty. He very well might be. I know in redrafts, he's going to probably be the most added player in fantasy football this week. But you also have to look at the stats. The Bengals threw the football about 4 fewer times per game in 2023 when Browning was the quarterback compared to Joe Burrow. They were second in pass percentage with Burrow. They were 11th in pass percentage with Browning. And now to what I think is the really bad news. The wide receivers, who are two of the best in the game, and Jamar Chase was the number 1 overall pick in fantasy. Both of these players just saw their ceilings not completely collapse, Marcus, but take a pretty significant hit if you look at the 23 data. So we'll go back. Jamar averaged 6.5 targets, 4.8 catches, 63.8 yards, scored 1 touchdown, and averaged 12 points per game when Jake Browning was the quarterback. In the first 10 games that year with Burrow, 11 targets a game, 7 catches, 83 yards, scored 6 touchdowns, and averaged nearly 19 fantasy points. So that's a collapse of 7 points per game ballpark. That's bad. And then you also have, because you know how I am in my head, curse the number 1 overall pick again. He is not scoring 400 points with Jake Browning under center.
No, he's not.
He's not. So whatever you want to say. It's not good. T. Higgins actually averaged more points with Browning in 23 than he did with Burrow, but he still only averaged 13 points per game. Last year, he was around 18. So this is a massive decline. So while Jake Browning could come in, Marcus, and legitimately be a QB1, he scored, 18 points yesterday and didn't play the full game. He rushed for a touchdown, which obviously helps. This is going to hurt Jamar Chase. This is going to hurt T. Higgins. Not to the point where I'm thinking about trading these guys, obviously, but now you have to really temper expectations because I had already talked about in the preseason how, listen, Jamar was awesome. He's worth the number 1 overall pick, but regression's coming at some level. And now I think that level has increased a little bit. So you're not going to see, and Jamar had a good game yesterday. Don't get me wrong. He had a really good game yesterday. I'm just looking historically. I don't think you have a 19 point per game wide receiver, a 20 point per game wide receiver anymore. From here on it, if you get 16 to 17 points per game, count your blessings.
Here's the big picture concern for me is I mean, you're not going to have Burrow the rest of this year. I don't care whether they're saying it's 3 months. They're just not going to rush him back in late December if the Bengals are out of playoff contention. And if they're
Sure.
in playoff contention, they're probably just going to keep rolling with Jake Browning. Not that he's better than Burrow, but they don't want to. The last thing you want to do is rush Joe Burrow back from an injury, right? But on the other hand, Fabs, like Burrow's missed a lot of time. It was 2020, he tore his ACL.
Yep.
He had an MCL sprain. He had the hand injury. He had that calf injury that lingered that whole season. Now he's got a turf toe. Like he has not been a very durable quarterback. And by the end of this season, he's going to basically miss the same number of games that he's played. And this was one of our points this offseason is, yes, we love Joe Burrow as the passer and the numbers he can put up. But when you're comparing him to Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, he's just far less durable than any of those guys. He's not as mobile, right? So he can't get out of pressure. And now I'm looking at somebody who is being drafted as QB5 going into August, which we thought was already too high. And I wondered, like, are we going to see him outside the top 10 quarterbacks? I honestly, I think he probably should be. And I do wonder, like, what this is going to do for Chase Brown, because what we saw from Chase Brown in this game, 16 carries for 47 yards. They're just not going to be in the red zone as often. They're not going to have as many long drives. Even though Jake Browning is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league, he's not Joe Burrow. I think everybody in this offense is taking a major hit, not only for the short term, but also for the long term here, because I don't know how you can trust Joe Burrow at all going forward.
It's tough, right? I mean, he's almost become the Christian McCaffrey of quarterbacks, which is kind of funny because McCaffrey's like one of the only healthy guys the Niners have right now. But no, and from a dynasty perspective, like everybody knows this now. You think you're going to be able to move Joe Burrow?
No,
I mean,
no.
Even next season, when we expect that he'll come into camp and be fine and good to go, he's lost value. Because as Marcus mentioned, you go back to the ACL, and then he had the wrist in 23 where he missed, I think, 7 starts. And then you have now the turf toe, which is going to cost him basically the entirety of the season, or at least the majority of the season. And, him coming back in mid-December, you make a good point. If the Bengals are in playoff contention, then Browning kind of got them there. So, you may not bring Joe Burrow back. So
I think 3 months from everything that I've been told by a couple of people I reach out to is very, very optimistic post-surgery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there are a couple of people saying, he could be healed, but he's never going to have the same explosion in that toe again. And that could be a big deal for a quarterback. And that's why I don't think I would be shocked if Joe Burrow plays another game this year. I'll just put it that way. I'll be shocked.
Yeah, whether it does or it doesn't, I mean, it's not going to be much. It's not going to help fantasy managers. That's for certain. But I think what we're talking about here is a decline that is almost certain to happen across the board. Is Chase Brown going to be horrible? No. But is he going to put up the numbers he put up in the 10 games he played and started last year? No. T. Higgins, is he going to average 18, 19 points per game like he did last year? No. And I love Jamar Chase. I love him. I have him in one of my dynasty leagues. It ain't like I'm sitting him, but is he going to put up 403 fantasy points and average well over 20 points? No, he's not. Like Jake Browning is a good quarterback. He's not Joe Burrow. And even the stats showed it from 23. The pass percentage went down. The pass attempts per game went down when Burrow went down. And Browning is a fine quarterback. Like I said, I mean, the kid averaged like 19 points per game. Like that's starting fantasy value.
Real quick.
But his wide receivers took a hit.
Is there anybody the Bengals could go out and sign or trade for? Because they are 2-0, which is crazy. Like they're winning their division right now. And you probably, looking at the AFC playoff picture, you probably only need to get to 9 wins to make the playoffs this year. Is there anybody that you could go out and get that could get you to like go 7-8 over the next 15 games? Is there anybody that you feel decent about?
Not anybody better than Jake Browning. He knows the offense.
Jameis Winston?
No. I honestly don't think the Bengals are going to be looking. I think they like Jake Browning. I think you said he's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. I mean, do they need to obviously bring in somebody to back up Browning? I mean, that's certainly something that could happen. But to challenge him for the starting job, I don't know about that. I think Browning is pretty much good to go here. Sans him getting injured at some point. This brings me to like how last night, again, I'm freaking out about JJ McCarthy, and more to the point, my Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson shares. I don't think the Vikings are going to make a move. Maybe they should. I don't think the Bengals are going to make a move. And I think they're fine with Browning.
All right, let's talk about some rookie running backs who stood out and a couple that did not in week 2. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. We absolutely love Prize Picks here on the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. It's the daily fantasy app where you make some calls and they're absolutely right and you get paid. How simple is that? You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. And with football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing on Prize Picks for the last couple of years, and it's such a fun way to stay locked into the NFL season. It's quick, it's easy, and honestly, it's my favorite way to follow along football on Sundays. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Fabs, let's talk about some rookie running backs who stood out. And let's start with Quinshon Judkins, who made his NFL debut. He got 10 carries in this game. He was announced as a starter. What did you think of Judkins' debut?
I have him everywhere. Like I've told you this. I took the discount on him everywhere. I think I have him in like 95% of my leagues. It was funny because I was talking to my buddy James Rode Rodriguez, who's a huge fantasy football guy, and he knows because he's in a lot of leagues with me. He's like, "Well, you must be happy right now because Judkins is back." And yeah, I am. Here's what's crazy. He played 19 snaps in that game yesterday. 19. He scored more points than Kyron Williams, Tony Pollard, Chase Brown, Breece Hall, and Derrick Henry. I'm like, oh my God, like what the hell happened?
Well, some of those guys had some rough outings, so let's be fair.
Goodness gracious. Yeah. I mean, well, the Jets, they were dead in the water, negative game script. Forget about the ground attack. And they have a problem with Justin Fields, who suffered a concussion. But I was happy with what I saw. He averaged over 6 yards a rush. I don't know if they have to build him up anymore. Like, how much more do they have to build him up? But he's the starter. He's the early down back. He's going to be the goal line back. Dylan Sampson is kind of what we thought he was going to be, right? He's a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield and be a complementary piece to Judkins. But the whole, I don't know what happened. Obviously, the charges were dropped with the allegations, and I don't want to get into anything like that. But from a fantasy football perspective, if I have Judkins in Dynasty, I'm pretty happy right now. Because there was a lot of people in the preseason that were talking about he's not going to play this year and the Browns aren't going to sign him. That was a whole bunch of hogwash. Yeah. And that's why I targeted him where I did in every single draft. And now I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, Marcus, that at some point during the course of the season, and it could be the first half of the season, Quinshon Judkins is an RB2 in fantasy and a guy you're just keeping in your lineup every single week.
I thought he looked really good for a running back that had no training camp. And only a couple practices under his belt. Like, I thought he looked really good. Now, I've got some big concerns about this Browns offense as a whole.
Yeah, for sure.
You can see the bones of this offense and what it's going to look like. Like, hey, another week where Harold Fannin outproduced David Njoku, but they're a 2 tight end offense where they want to run the ball with Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson, and Jerry Jeudy is a viable outside receiver. They just need a quarterback that's better than Joe Flacco. Will they get that in the near future? We'll see. But I do like this Cleveland offense long-term outside of the quarterback position, which makes me open to going out and buying Quinshon Judkins wherever I can.
I liked him. I was shocked they took Trevion Henderson, who we're going to talk about later. Yep. They didn't take him when he was available instead of taking Judkins. But obviously now, this is why when the draft happened, the NFL draft, we all had Judkins ranked way higher than Henderson. Well, maybe not way higher, but higher because of the situation that he's entering in.
Yeah.
And now Travion Henderson, what did we talk about the preseason, Marcus, you and I? So now in Dynasty, who would you rather have? Judkins or Henderson?
It's close. It's close.
It wasn't close. It wasn't close a week ago, and for the month before that. Now it's close. See, this is what happens.
Let's talk about Cam Skattebo for the New York Giants. He led the team in carries with 11 for 45 yards and a touchdown. He did have one long run for 24 yards that kind of helped make up his day. I have mixed feelings on Skattebo because I thought outside of that 24-yard run, he looked very pedestrian. He did catch 2 passes for 14 yards. But I think the more interesting thing is he's just getting more work than Tyrone Tracy. That wasn't the case last week, but it was this week.
Yeah.
How are you valuing Cam?
I think this thing is going to be very difficult to predict from a week-to-week basis. I like Tyrone Tracy coming into this game. You know, as a fantasy analyst, I even posted this on Twitter yesterday because it's just very frustrating. When you suggest that a player on a team is going to do well, and then his teammate at the same position does well, and you're like, well, that's what I was projecting for him. You know, like the Skattebo numbers I was projecting for Tracy. But Tracy played 25 snaps. Skattebo had 35. Devin Singletary actually started the game, but he only had 4 offensive snaps. But that's why I don't know what to expect on a weekly basis from this backfield, to be quite honest with you. I love watching Cam play, just so much fun to watch. He's old school. Like, I dig it. Like, I just like in terms of like me loving old school football, like I love that. I think he's a lot of fun to watch. But I think this is going to be a very difficult team to really predict on a week-to-week basis, because I don't think, Marcus, that Skattebo is going to like run away with this job, because Tyrone Tracy is a good player, and the Giants lack for playmakers. And by the way, golf clap on Wan'Dale Robinson for you this past weekend, because I know you liked him. And boy, does the Cowboys defense suck eggs. But anyways, that's who would I rather have? I'd still rather have Tracy, but it's going to be hard to predict this backfield. And we are seeing this more and more across the National Football League, where you just don't know who's going to get the ball on a regular basis. Some of the backfields have cleared up a little bit, like Jacksonville has certainly cleared up a little bit. The Giants, though, I think we need a little bit more time. We still got to go to school.
I want to ask you about another running back, Caleb Johnson, who was a really hot name this offseason. He landed with Arthur Smith. Jaylen Warren was in the final year of his contract. He had 1 carry last week. He had 1 carry this week for 1 yard. He had a massive screw up on a kick return that basically sealed the game for Seattle, where he didn't field the ball. Seattle recovered it in the end zone. Back-to-back weeks where he's done nothing. And I think Jaylen Warren's looked pretty good, not necessarily as a runner, but mostly as a receiver.
Yeah.
I know that people are still buying Caleb Johnson long-term because they believe in the fit. Are you?
Listen, I mean, I wouldn't mind buying low on him, but it'd have to be a buy low. I mean, because if you can't pass protect, you're not going to be a 3-down back in the NFL. And that's clearly the problem.
He's RB17 right now on Dynasty League football.
Kenneth Gainwell's a nice back, but talent-wise, I mean, come on. Like Caleb Johnson is more talented than Kenneth Gainwell, and he can't pass him on the depth chart. And it doesn't look like he's in redrafts. Like, Caleb Johnson's almost droppable at this point. He's not playing. So there would need to be an injury for him to even have an opportunity to make some sort of fantasy impact. In Dynasty, obviously, that's very different. It's not the case. I don't know if you're going to be able to play this kid anytime soon. As long as Warren is healthy. And from a fantasy standpoint, he's been very good the first 2 weeks. In fact, I remember in the preseason when I heard that Johnson was having troubles in pass protection, I'm like, uh-oh. I took him off of some of my like more positive lists, you know, and I'm like, okay, that's not good. It's certainly not a great start to his NFL career, and especially with the gaffe that he had, as you mentioned, that resulted in a Seattle touchdown. I don't know when this kid's going to get meaningful snaps, and if he's going to get meaningful snaps, as long as Gainwell and Warren ahead of him are healthy.
Yeah, and I think even if Warren were banged up, I think Gainwell would be the leading back here, and they would mix Caleb Johnson in. I just won't be surprised if we see Caleb Johnson be like a healthy scratch next week, because if he's not helping on offense, I think they got to take him off kickoff, duties or kick return duties. This feels like a kind of a lost season for Caleb Johnson, and a lot of people were expecting Johnson, at least during the pre-draft process. Hey, this is a guy that could go like middle second round, kind of in that Quinshon Judkins range, and be a guy that produces right away. Nothing so far. So
That's been
not
bad.
a great start for Caleb Johnson. There have been two other running backs that have been off to fantastic starts through the first two games. Let's talk about James Cook and Jonathan Taylor next. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. We all turn to some funny places for advice. Maybe it's your barista, your barber, or maybe a random stranger in the bathroom. Don't do that. That sounds like some bad advice. But not everyone is the right one when it comes to real support. That's why BetterHelp is here. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 10 years of experience, BetterHelp helps you find the right match, someone who is clinically trained and credentialed to guide you through life's challenges. I know that I've been caught up sometimes venting to the wrong people that don't always have my best interest in mind, but that is where BetterHelp can come in. Their licensed therapist can help you through whatever issues or problems that you're having in your life right now. And as the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Find the one with BetterHelp, and our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That is BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. This episode is brought to you by Upside. Hey, Locked On Dynasty football fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use our limited time promo code Touchdown to get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. And you can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas that you already needed. At first, I thought this was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. So don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now by using our limited time promo code Touchdown for a limited time 25 cents per gallon bonus. That is promo code Touchdown. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Podcast. 2 episodes every single day. 1 in the morning with Tyler Rowland, 1 in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's talk about some veteran running backs here. James Cook, who was all the way down to RB19 going into the month of August. Now, some of that was based on some contract stuff, some holdouts. But he's been unbelievable, Fabs, in the first 2 games. He had another massive day against the Jets. Is James Cook a top 10 dynasty running back right now?
He certainly looks at, and just to update people, Adam Schefter just posted while we were recording that Joe Burrow will need toe surgery, and he will miss a minimum of 3 months. So he's gone for the rest of the season, unfortunately. Back to James Cook. You and I loved him coming into the season. Now, the touchdown regression I thought was coming, and I still think it is, but damn, did he look good against the Jets. Their defense is not good. So young guy, not a lot of wear and tear in a great offense. Who's going to Josh Allen will steal some touchdowns. There's no question about that. But last year we proved that doesn't necessarily matter. Same kind of thing with like Saquon and Jalen Hurts last year. I've always liked James Cook. I wasn't jumping off the bandwagon, especially when the contract situation was brewing and it seemed like maybe there was an issue. Marks and I were both very much steadfast in the fact that we like James Cook. We love the talent. We love the situation. We love the opportunities. And he's not elite, but he's knocking on elite's door if he keeps this up.
I just think he looked awesome in week 2, and he looked great in week 1. He's breaking off these big runs, and he's being utilized in the passing game. And I'm starting to go through like some of the dynasty rankings, and I'm going through some of the names, and Man, I have a hard time getting to 10 running backs I like more. Like, let's go through a couple of them. Breece Hall, RB9.
I'd rather have Cook.
Okay. Christian McCaffrey, RB11.
Rather have Cook.
I missed one. Derrick Henry, RB10.
Rather have Cook.
Chase Brown, RB12.
Rather have Cook.
Okay. Bucky Irving, RB8.
So that one's a little bit tougher because Bucky's a little bit younger. I'd probably go, and you know what? I'm going Cook. Let's get nuts.
And
like Michael Keaton said in Batman.
You're right. Bucky Irving is younger, but it's not like James Cook is old. He's 25, and he doesn't have a ton of wear and tear on his body either. I just have a hard time every time I'm looking at these rankings not moving James Cook up because he's in a fantastic offense. He, outside of Josh Allen, he's the only one that we can like rely on to get every week.
Yeah.
And I don't see that changing.
No, you're right. I mean, the Bills, boy, everyone got all excited about Keon Coleman in week 1, and that was great. I mean, I had him as a sit-em at Sports Illustrated because he was facing, Sauce Gardner, and none of Buffalo's. I liked Khalil Shakir, yesterday. The Jets hadn't really done well against slot receivers, dating back to last year, but game script, man, like people have to understand how important game script is when it comes to fantasy football and points. So when you talk about Breece Hall, the matchup looked good.
Mm-hmm.
They just got smoked. I mean, you can't run the ball when you're getting slaughtered, and game script is so important. Same thing with with the Bills receivers. They were getting so much in terms of yardage chunk plays, as Elliot Harrison likes to say. When they were running the ball, they didn't need to throw the ball. Josh Allen had a lousy fantasy game yesterday. He had like 11 points. He didn't do anything. Didn't need to. Game script.
The other running back that I want to talk about was Jonathan Taylor. And this is another one that we were advocating buying this offseason because, certainly once Daniel Jones was announced as the starter, 25 carries for 165 yards on the ground, 2 receptions for 50 yards, so well over 200 yards and a touchdown. He's looked awesome. And this was against the Denver Broncos defense, which is widely regarded as one of the best defenses in the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor looks like a top 5 dynasty running back in a league winner once again.
He looked great in that game yesterday. Both as a runner as a pass catcher as well. And, we've seen this from JT before. He's actually among the players who, if you're like me and you like to mess around with the word cursed, was cursed by the number 1 overall pick. Remember what he had done the previous year? He had 20 touchdowns. I mean, so like this is not new territory for Taylor. It was a great performance from him. I think the thing that just shocks me is that in the first 2 weeks of the season, Daniel Jones is legit one of the best, not even fantasy quarterback. He's been one of the best quarterbacks.
He's looked fantastic.
I don't know if I have no idea. He had one really good year with the Giants. They couldn't get him out of town fast enough, and they had Tommy DeVito for crying out loud. Like they wanted Daniel Jones out. And, maybe sometimes it's just situation. Maybe it's sometimes lack of talent, lack of a good coach, a good offensive coordinator. I don't know. But this has been a phenomenal fit. Like Daniel Jones is starting to knock on QB1's door, right? Listen, in Dynasty, it's a different thing. I understand that. But holy cow, he's looked good. And the offense, I mean, listen, you're not going to get consistent production from the receivers. Although Tyler Warren, and I'll pound my chest on that because I love that dude coming in, is going to be super consistent to the point now where I don't even know if I can list him and start him and sit him because he's become like a must start because tight end's a dumpster fire. So, but Daniel Jones is just making that offense click. One week it's going to be Pittman, maybe 1 week it'll be Josh Downs, but every week it's going to be Jonathan Taylor. And that's big. That's big.
I'm always cautious after 2 games saying that a bad offense from a year before is suddenly a great one because of what we saw last year with the Saints. Remember when the Saints looked awesome in the first 2 weeks?
I remember the Saints beating our brains.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I've always believed in the talent on this offense. I've always loved Jonathan Taylor. Tyler Warren is a fantastic player who was worthy of a top 10 pick. I know he didn't go there, but he should have. We like Michael Pittman. We like Josh Downs. We liked A.D. Mitchell. they needed was a viable quarterback to get them the ball. And Daniel Jones has done that so far. Now, I worry about Daniel Jones' health and his durability a little bit. But you start looking at this schedule like coming up, and there's not very many games on the schedule where like you're terrified if you have any Colts players.
This
And
past
I think
game was one of the worst ones.
and probably the worst one. Now there's a couple maybe against the Texans. There's a game like against at the Chargers. But I think Jonathan Taylor, the point is Jonathan Taylor is already being valued as a top 10 dynasty running back. And now I'm getting into the point where I have a hard time putting him outside the top 5 because I just think he's going to give you such efficiency and touches every week. I love Jonathan Taylor moving forward.
If he can avoid injuries, and he's had some boo-boos, let's just say in the past, you're looking at a top 5 player.
Unreal. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Fabs on Twitter at Michael_Fabiano. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.